Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wan Zain Azim bin Wan Muhammad Mazudi. So today I will present for BMM 1711. My topic is paper. Okay. First, what is paper? Paper is a network of plant fiber laid down as flat sheet. It is made from a suspension of plant tissues in water known as pulp. Most pulp is made from wood, but recycled paper and other plant sources, including hemp, cotton, esparto, grass, sugarcane, bagasse, and bamboo, can also be used. So pepper is also an aqueous deposit of any vegetable fiber in sheet form. So what does that mean is if you tear a piece of paper, you will see a number of minute whiskers sticking out from the line of the tear. These are the fibers. They are very small in size, not much more than a millimeter in length. So it's hard to see with our eye, and there are millions of them in any piece of paper. Paper is made from cellulose, trees being the main source of cellulose fiber or wood pulp. Besides wood pulp, paper can be made from other materials such as cotton, flax, esparto, straw, hemp, manila, and jute. So next is where the history of paper. So the name paper come from the Latin papyrus, which was made from grass-like plant, sliced into layers and beaten into sheet. This is why many people think that the first paper was made by the Egyptian. But in fact, paper had its origin in China as early as in AD 105 from Sailun, a minister in the Empire Palace. This is his face. So borax and old fishing nets, then beat them to make a part. A mat woven from bamboo strips and silk strips was stretched over a wooden frame and was dipped into the pulp. The fiber from this thread settled on the mat and water drained away to form a sheet of paper. Next is so how paper introduced to Europe. So over 600 years later, after the Chinese era, a Chinese paper making factory in Samarkand was captured by an army Arab. The Arab conquerors used the expertise of the Chinese paper makers to set up factories throughout the Muslim world and paper making techniques. So this technique first arrived in Europe when the Moors conquered Spain. The raw material for paper making were hemp and linen wax, including some from the wrapping of mummies. So next is from the British. This is where the first paper mill was built in Britain in Hertfordshire in 1488, 1488 and was referred to in a book printed by Caxton in 1490 years. So by 1,800 paper making factory were using 24 million tons of wax per year and supplies of the raw material fell short of requirement. The search for a cheap, readily available and easily renewable substitute began. So after that come the what we I like to call machine era, because from this part where the paper was created using a machine, not by hand. So a fresh biologist observed that was nests were made of a form of paper, which the was produced by macerating wood, and he suggested that wood might be a suitable material for papermaker to use. The first recorded use of wood for papermaking in Europe was in 1769, but it was not until 1840 that paper made entirely from wood pulp appeared. The first newspaper to be made from an old wood pulp, the New York Times, appeared in 1870. Early wood pulp were made by grinding logs between two slowly spinning stones. Pulp made by dissolving the woody substances in cell walls using strong chemicals did not appear until 1851. The papermaking process was made faster and cheaper by the invention of the four-drainer papermaking machine, which used a continuous wire mesh belt instead of individual paper molds for forming a sheet of paper. This machine was first used in England in 1803 and finally ended the slow process of papermaking by hand. So this picture is the example of the early machine that they use to create paper by wood pulp. Next is, so this part I will briefly explain how paper making process by machine today are used. So paper plays a key role in our daily lives, but how is it made? Although the basic processes of paper making have remained unchanged for centuries, paper once made by hand in individual sheets. Just now I just explained to you that Kailun, the Minister Empire, he created the paper by using hand. So now, today paper is now made on enormous paper making machine, 4 times the length of a cricket pitch. So in 1 week, a single machine can produce enough paper to stretch from London to New York. Some paper is still made by hand and the skill of paper making has been handed down from generation to generation. So next, okay, this item show the process how the paper making is how the paper is made. So we have two option how the paper get. So one is the basic material from the wood, we wood pulp, and the other is from the recyclable paper. So we explain these two part. The first part is from the wood. So wood uh, timber used for paper making comes from well-managed forests where more trees are planted than harvested to ensure sustainable growth. Paper makers usually use only the part of the tree that other commercial industry don't want, such as sawmill, waste, and forest mining. And the second is from the wood, we go to the barking and chipping. Bark is stripped from the logs by knife, drum, abrasion, or hydraulic barker. The stripped bark is then used for fuel or as soil nourishment. So stripped logs are chipped into small pieces by knife mounted in massive steel wheels used in chemical pulping process, which I will explain later. The chips pass through vibrating screens, whereby both undersized chips, dust or etc., and oversized chips are rejected. So after that, the accepted chips are then stored in huge bins ready for the next process. So the next process is chemical pulping. Chips from the bins are fed into a digester to which chemicals have been added. The wood chips are then cooked to remove the lining. So what is lining? So lining uh, is like a coated for the uh, wood or chips that have been chipped from by the process from the debarking and chipping. Chip after that, the chips are cooked by heat and pressure in caustic soda and sulfur to remove the lining. The chemical pulping process produces lower fiber yield than mechanical pulping, typically between 50 and 60%. So after the chemical pulping, we go to the mechanical pulping. Mechanical pulp yields over 90% of the wood as fiber is produced by forcing debarked logs about 2 meters long and hot water between enormous rotating steel discs with teeth that literally tear the wood apart. Alternatively, logs can be pressed against grindstones, which is why this process is also known as ground wood pulp. So about the lining, I will tell a little bit about lining. So trees contain up to 30% lining, material which is sensitive to light and degrades and turn brown in sunlight, which explain why papers made from mechanical pulp will discolor. An example of this is newsprint. Newsprint is designed to have a short lifespan, and it left for a long period of time will lose its whiteness and strength. But the special advantage of mechanical pulp are that it makes the paper opaque and bulky. So next, this is for the second part for process to create a paper by recycling. So first is paper for recycling. Paper for recycling is an uh, obviously important material for the pulp and paper industry. The recovered paper merchant collects the used paper, which is then sorted by hand into different grades. Paper not suitable for recycling is removed. After that, we go to pulping. Paper for recycling is dissolved into pulp to separate the component fiber. Next part is de-inking. Before painted paper can be recycled, the ink needs to be removed. Otherwise, it will be dispersed into the pulp and a dull gray paper will result. There are two main processes of de-inking waste paper. These are known as washing and flotation. So I will tell a little bit about these two process. So first is washing. Washing is when the waste paper is placed into a pulper with large quantities of water and broken down into a slurry. Contraries, such as staples, are removed using centrifugal screens. Most of the water containing the dispersed ink is drained through slopes or screens that allow the dispersed ink particle through. Without taking the pulp, adhesive particles known as stickies are removed by fine screening. So the next part is about flotation. Flotation is, again, the waste is made into a slurry and contaminants removed. Special surfactant chemical are added which makes a sticky froth on the top of the pulp. So after the process of de-inking, we go to coating, which is coating will improve the opacity, lightness, surface smoothness, luster, and color absorption ability of paper. It makes exacting quality demands regarding surface smoothness. So next, so after the two part, which is from the wood and from the recycled paper, there we go to this process, which is wire section. The wire is a woven plastic mesh conveyor belt which can be up to 35 meters long and as wide as the paper machine. The stock by now is milky and appearance where it has been diluted with water. The stock flows from a flow box onto the wire which distributes the fibers evenly over the whole width of the paper machine. After that, after the wire section, we go to press section. The paper passes from the wire section to the press section will consist of a number of heavy rollers. The paper is conveyed through these rollers on thick felt of synthetic fiber. More moisture is squeezed out by the paper like a mango and drawn away by suction. After the press section, where uh, the pepper the pepper has been squeezed and the moisturize has been decreased, it will go to where we dry the pepper. Pepper will be passed through a large number of steam heated drying cylinder. This cylinder can be up to 50 or 60 on a fast running paper machine. Synthetic dryer fabrics carry the web of pepper round the cylinders until the pepper is completely dry. So that second last of the processing is calendaring. For even smoother paper surface, super calendaring is required. This is done primarily for magazines and coated paper. Uh, so from through the combination, I will be add a little bit about this rendering. For through a combination of heat, pressure, and friction, the paper acquires a high luster surface. The paper becomes somewhat compressed during the process and is therefore thinner than its matte finish equivalent. So last part is finishing rails and sheets or converting. Once the paper is made, a great deal of it is converted into a product. Converters specialize in depositing reels and sheets of paper and board into a vast array of finished products for distribution, such as boxes, cartoons, and stationery. Converters sell their products to the public or to other manufacturers. Not all paper and board is processed by a converter. Some paper makers do their own converting. For example, the manufacturers of soft tissues market their own products and sell directly to the public. The printing industry convert large quantities of paper and board, much of which reaches the customers as newspaper, magazine, or books. So after that, we go to tell you most common types of paper. There is a broad variety of types of paper on the market that are adapted to specific applications or the target industry. Each type has specific properties in terms of composition, production, and handling. So first, on the side, I just briefly tell you about each type of paper, but I will elaborate more about each paper. So first is repro paper. So essentially, this paper uh, are our daily use. So, uh, for example, the A4 paper or A3 paper. So these sheets are made with a small amount of cellulose and a great deal of filler, which facilitates printing their main application. So repro paper also can be called offset or printing paper. It is one of the most common papers on the market and is manufactured in large quantities. So generally speaking, these sheets are uh, the most common grammage range its weight from 70 to 90, although they can be as high as 100 grams. Manufacturers seek the greatest possibility degree of whiteness for this material. As we can see from the shop stationery, the color is very white. Uh, so this color are largely obtained with the help of fillers. On the other hand, since it is used for application that do not require a great deal of handling, it is only strong enough to go through the printer or to be folded. So that is what repro paper. So second one is coach or coated paper. So coated paper is manufactured with more short than long fiber, and the filler is joined to the fabric by means of a binding engine, which may be synthetic or natural. Normally, it uses calcium carbonate. A coated layer is applied to the cellulose, yielding better printing and resolution results on account of the higher screen. So, this is because why the printing and resolution result on account of the is because the ink remains on the surface, and consequently, the post-printing result is shinier and more colorful. One of the most common option for this coated paper is white coated paper because if the coating cracks, the background color is not apparent. Although the color difference will be noticeable in color coating. There is the matte or semi-matte finish also involving the application of surface ink, although in this case, it will be less shinier. So for coated paper, in terms of its strength, just because of the high amount of fibre, fiber and short fiber makes it quite low as opposed to the high printing quality. Production runs normally between 7 and 8 meter wide in the machine with speed of up to 1000 meters a minute. So a little facts about water paper. Then is tissue paper. So tissue paper, this material is highly absorbent and soft. So its water resistant will depend on the subtype in subtype in question. So what does it mean is tissue paper have variety of type uh, for the client what they want. So this tissue paper used to manufacture handkerchiefs or napkins. They must withstand liquid to prevent them from falling apart when used, whereas paper used for napkins must dissolve easily. So to achieve this, different treatments are applied during the manufacturing process and they are normally produced with virgin fiber. There also color tissue paper and it is made with a mass dye process. Prints and relief are applied offline once the paper has left the machine. This paper is normally made in rolls with a weight of 1 meter that is subsequently cut to order at a maximum speed of 2000 meter a minute. So next is newsprint. Newsprint paper, as its name implies, is used to print newspaper. Its life cycle is short, normally 1 day, for obvious reason because yes, it's for newspaper is usually last for only 1 day or will be recycled for other things. So it is uh, just because for the reason they use short, the material quality does not need to be high and the paper is manufactured with mechanical pulp containing residue as the paper does not need to be white. So that's why it is rarely colored, although if it is, the color is applied by means of mass dyeing. So after that is cardboard. Okay, there are cardboard, there are paperboard, and it is different things. Yeah. So first is cardboard. Uh, Cardboard is it is made with raw unbleached wood pulp, leading it to maintain its original brown color as appearance is not a concern. It is normally made with a recycled material. So cardboard is also a product made with paper, although this is not always evident on account of its thickness. So the cardboard is comprised of 3 layers of paper. Two will be with smooth outer layer and a corrugate inner layer. The latter providing it with its characteristic so in strength. So that's why cardboard usually will be used for uh, will be turned into boxes where they can stand the weight for other thing that will be put inside it. So in terms of mechanical property, the corrugated layer makes the material strong. Although on the other hand, it is not suitable for printing since it may get crushed depending on the pressure applied to it. So next is paperboard. Paperboard is used to make most food containers such as cereal or biscuit packaging. Paperboards are made of very short fibers, which are not usually virgin fibers, since the inner layer does not need to be white. So a little bit about paperboard. The grammage will vary depending on the target industry or the specific application or product in terms of mechanical characteristic. Usually it might be strong enough to withstand the product being opened and closed until it is no longer used. So last is fine art paper. So paper, this material was devised as a more economical option to canvas. In fact, some of these papers actually feature excellent characteristics and can withstand almost a century without turning yellow. So, what does this mean is uh, it also this may also depending on the artistic technique because usually they must have a different technical and functional characteristic depend on the artistic. Um, in actual fact, uh, for the some of these paper actually feature excellent characteristic is uh, between 1920 and 1930. Guaro Casas turned its hand to the manufacture of special paper for works by Picasso, Miro, Dali, and Garcia Lorca. So next is we talk global about the paper industry, its statistics, and some facts. So this graph show the global paper production volume from 2008 and 2018 in 1,000 metric tons. So you can see from the graph, the packaging paper and board increasing from 2008 to 2018, um, but the for the graphic part are decreasing, and others are maintained or has a little bit increasing from 2008 to 2016, but a little bit decreased to 2018. So the next is production volume of paper and cardboard in major countries from 2009 to 2018 in 1,000 metric tons. So actually, this is a video, a short clip. It will show the progress, the production for these major countries from 2009 to 2018. But I can play the video, but uh, this graph actually is the same where China is the top to produce volume of paper cardboard in major country from 2009 to 2018. The same for US, it in the second place, but for China from 2009 and 2018, it is maintained, yeah, it is increasing for production of paper and cardboard. But in US, uh, it actually has a slight decreasing from 2016 to 2018. So for the other countries, actually it's the same from 2009 to 2018. So next, last but not least, what I want to talk about is future for paper industry. So future paper industry, some people might think the pulp and paper industry will eventually be hindered by the current digital age which we live. While it sounds logical, that's not the reality of what's happening. In fact, the pulp and paper industry has been thriving and will continue to do so in 2022. Notably, leaders in the industry must continually innovate to meet the changing demand uh, for the client in different era or today for with while digital are more where people to work more to the digital. So pulp and paper also have adapted to the changes that have occurred in recent years and are uh, continue to thrive. So there are also interesting trends that have disrupted the industry. Technology has contributed to the development of a global market that consists of consumers around the world who are committed to sustainability. As a result, manufacturers have sought alternatives to petroleum-based products and have identified biodegradable and environmentally friendly options. These are just some of the changes occurring. So this So this is the trends that I was talking about. Uh, I will briefly explain one by one about each of this plan. So first is increase online sale. So uh, of course, to this era where the online sales, people like to go shopping for online sales. So this will make the sales of pulp and paper product are growing. For example, in the United States and China, which are the biggest market. This is a trend that is expected to continue in 2022. It's partly due to online shopping that has required innovation in packaging to optimize the display of products on shelf. The growth encompasses a higher demand for raw materials and corrugated box. There is also an increase in the number of products that are required immediately with very little lead time. This includes both same-day and next-day product delivery service. From a production standpoint, the goal is to provide service faster without sacrificing the quality. So the next is higher packaging demand. So in 2022, the global demand for various types of packaging products will either remain stable or increase. This includes production in Japan, China, different countries, and the United States. In fact, one of the strengths of the pulp and paper industry is the fact that the demand for packaging product is always expanding. Uh, This is spurred by the boost in online shopping, as we talked about just now, and the explosion of e-commerce entrepreneurial endeavors in recent years. So next is use of big data. Another trend that's in play in the pulp and paper industry is the use of big data. This is for the purpose to analyzing industry trends and to optimize the result of production, marketing, or sales. There is also the use of new technologies, including intelligent system and connected device during the production process for to improve outcomes. The capabilities will continue to develop, such as smart system that assess pulp and paper products, condition and quality. Analytics are even used for the purpose of assessing the volume and growth of trees that can be harvested for raw materials. The use of big data is expected to expand in 2022 and subsequent years. So next is digital revolution. So although the digital revolution did not destroy the pulp and paper industry, it did require a pivot in strategy. For instance, there was a clear shift to packaging materials from the print paper for reasons that are obvious given the tremendous demand associated with shipping products purchased online. Many in the industry have made tactical moves that involve leveraging capabilities to meet the changing needs in the market. There has also been the implementation of new technologies for the purpose of optimizing productivity. The result is often usually faster speed, and the quality has been improved. So next is lightweight packaging. So if you are a consumer, you may have noticed a change in the weight of certain packaging. To those that are attentive, this become obvious for certain products. It's because lightweight packaging was introduced as many benefits were discovered. This is the case for packaging products at all levels, including luxury brands and mid-cost brands. So one of the benefits of lightweight packaging is that it can support the growth of a business by cutting expense. Lightweight packagings lower pulp expense, reduce the CO2 emissions, and slashes shipping costs, which are just some of the many benefits. So next is recyclable products. So the ability to recycle pulp and paper product is non-negotiable for some consumer. So as I explained before, the paper process also has can be made from the recyclable paper to make a new create a new type of paper. So as a result, there is an increase in recyclable products. This has been a challenge in that some product contain coatings that were waterproof and problematic for recycling. So although we also have the coating de-inking, but some product can be washed their ink from the paper. So but now there is push to use protective coating that are recyclable, and it's a trend that will further develop in 2022 and beyond. The growing concern over the amount of packaging that could not be recycled has resulted in the involvement of the European Union in the area of plastic packaging. This offers many future opportunities for pulp and paper. So next is hygiene products packaging, also the new trend for the paper industry that will continue to increase the growth of hygiene products and the subsequent need for packaging. This include, for example, toilet paper, wipes, tissues, and paper towels. The growth is partly due to the increased purchase of these items by the middle class, especially during pandemic. So in some region of the world, this is attributed to an actual increase in the middle class population and thus an increase in the consumption of these products. Manufacturers in the pulp and paper industry have exploited this growth in socioeconomic status by producing packaging that accommodates and increasing the demand. So next is thermal market growth. So there is growth in the thermal market that uh, linked to the increase in food delivery service. So specifically, there is increase in number of restaurants that offer delivery option and also an explosion of third-party delivery service product provider, such as today in Malaysia we have Grab, Riders, or Food Pandas, where they will deliver the food or things to the customer that have been ordered. So this has created a need for thermal packaging that is will be expected to grow as long as consumers expect uh, to have hot food delivered to their homes. Uh, there will be a thriving thermal market in pulp and paper. There are many possibilities and opportunities in this area that will emerge as e-commerce continues to evolve. So last but not least is packaging for food. So packaging for food seems to be in constant development. Uh, from the data that we collect in recent years, there has been an increasing interest in packaging products that are resistant to grease. So this type of product is currently used for a wide variety of packaged goods and in restaurants. The material used to produce packaging that's resistant to grease are changing in an effort to eliminate fluorochemicals and replace it with a natural option that does not contain any chemicals. Manufacturers will continue to innovate and involve in this area to accommodate regulations and meet the current industry demands. So last is anti-plastic sentiment. So for this is there are ongoing efforts to reduce or eliminate the use of plastic for packaging. This anti-plastic sentiment is beneficial to the pulp and paper industry in that it encourages the biodegradable alternative. In fact, the use of plant-based raw materials is being explored right now. This is being driven by governmental agencies and by consumers that are health conscious and committed to finding eco-friendly options. Simply put, the problem associated with plastic result in a tremendous number of opportunity in the pulp and paper industry. The development of alternative product will continue into 2022 and beyond, especially as it relates to the banning of single-use plastic products. So, before I end, I want to summary on the future of the pulp and paper industry. So, I think that the pulp and paper industry will continue to play a major role in the world despite the change that have occurred because of technological advancement. This is an industry that has thrived and will continue to do so in 2022. In fact, as you can see from the trends, the digital revolution of recent years has led to an expansion in the part of industry. So it creates more opportunities for the paper industry to grow uh, and advance more. So as the world continues to evolve, so will the industry. So that's all for me. Thank you.